Let's review some settings. I'm gonna switch over to Appearance section and we'll start with Input Position. This option allows us to choose where prompt has to appear, whether at the bottom or at the top of the terminal. For example, if we'll choose Start at the top, we can see that prompt appears at the top now. But there is an option to make this prompt fixed always at the top. To do so, we need to choose Pin to the top option in here. And after doing this, no matter how many commands I'm gonna type in, the prompt will always stay at the very top of the terminal. But I'm gonna go with a default value for this option, which is Pin to the bottom, and this way the prompt will always be fixed at the bottom. Moving on, let's review a couple of settings related to panes. In order to create new pane, we can open up Command Palette by pressing Command P on macOS or Ctrl-Shift-P on Windows. And in here, let's execute Split Pane command and choose Direction. For example, let's create new pane at the right side. And now if I'm going to enable Dim Inactive Panes setting, inactive panes will be grayed out. As you can see, as I'm moving my cursor, the focus follows the cursor and the pane becomes active once cursor goes on top of this pane. But we can disable this behavior by simply disabling the next option, Focus Follows Mouse. And this time, as I'm gonna move my cursor, the focus will always stay at the same pane. Alright, I'm going to keep this setting, but disable the one which dims inactive panes. And this time, I can basically move focus by simply moving the cursor. Moving on to the next option called Compact Mode. When this option is enabled, all elements will kind of shrink and there will be less space in between lines. The next option, Show Jump to Bottom of Block button, allows us to specify whether we want to show the button for scrolling to the beginning of a certain block. If the block is not going to fit on the screen, as I'm gonna scroll this block, there will be an additional button by pressing which we will be scrolled to the beginning of this block. So we can disable this button by simply deactivating this option. After disabling this setting, as you can see, that button disappears. Moving on to the next one called Show Block Dividers. By default, when we scroll through blocks, all those blocks have dividers at the top and at the bottom, and the Show Block Dividers option allows us to disable those dividers. Let's try it out. I'm gonna deactivate this option, and right now, if I'm gonna scroll through the blocks, you might notice that top and bottom dividers are gone. The next block of settings is responsible for modifying font. We have already reviewed those settings in the previous lesson, so I'm not going to stop at those. They basically allow us to choose font, modify font weight, font size, as well as line spacing. Let's jump to the next settings related to cursor modifications. Here we can choose the type of the cursor. For example, if we'll choose bar, the cursor will be turned into a vertical line. If we'll choose block, the cursor will become rectangle. And if I'm going to use underline, the cursor will be turned into underscore. The next option, which is blinking cursor, allows us to choose whether we want the cursor to be blinking or not. And finally, as for tab settings that are located at the top, we can specify whether we want those tabs to show all the time or only on hover. So by default they're shown all the time, but if I'll change this option and use only on hover, as you can see now, those tabs are hidden, and in order to show them, we'll have to move the cursor over the tabs area. And this is it for now. In the next lesson, we're going to review a couple more settings.